Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to episode number 3 of the Tailgate Report. This is your host back for another week talking about some sports going on around the league here. Now, as you guys may notice, if this is not your first time stopping by, I have done a little bit of rebranding on the podcast here. I have decided to change the name. The main reason I did that is I initially thought the name I had was relatively original, one that was going to stick out a little bit. But after doing a little bit more of a deep dive, I kind of found out not so much. I found out there's actually a couple other people out there that have something that's either very similar, if not identical, not necessarily covering the same topics, but nonetheless, it was something that I didn't really want to have to, not only compete with, but also just take somebody else's idea. So with all of that being said, after some heavy considerations, I have decided to rebrand the podcast, and now we will be going with the name The Tailgate Report, which I gotta be honest, I think is an awesome name. If you guys notice, based on my Spotify profile icon, as well as for any of my friends on here watching on YouTube, you will notice that the image itself is pretty awesome. I think it fits incredibly well with what the theme of our show is, kind of the perspectives I try to give, as if I'm just a fan who is hanging out on the tailgate and watching some good sports. But you'll see here, we got a nice little image to kind of go with for the start of this new transition into the branding here. But nonetheless, guys, welcome on back to episode number 3. Pretty crazy. We've already done 2 episodes. I've felt pretty darn good with how those have gone. I'm trying to make improvements every single episode to continuously make the show better each week. And as you'll notice from episodes 1 to episode 2, I actually decided I'm going to start doing some actual slideshows to kind of help visualize a little bit more as to what exactly we're discussing on these topics. Now, with all that being said, if you have not guessed already, we will be jumping right into the playoffs this year in the NFL. So if I do slide on over to slide number 1, we'll jump right on in. So just to recap from the previous week here, there was some pretty big NFL matchups, as you guys all are very well aware of. And this one was a little bit of a herder for me. As all of you guys do know by this point, I'm a Minnesota Vikings fan. Nonetheless, I also am a big Josh Allen fan. I wanted this to be the season that Josh was really able to take the team to the Super Bowl and, potentially have an opportunity to win that Super Bowl. It was just a tough game. Josh turned the ball over a couple of times, had some costly interception, also had a pretty big fumble. But, across the board, Josh Allen, he had 283, 3 touchdowns. He had some, costly interceptions nonetheless. But he also had 66 yards on the ground. He really did play a pretty darn good game. It's just there was some situations where he turned the ball over, and those crucial moments is what really cost him there on the back end of things. James Cook, 117 yards rushing. Cook has been an electric factory all year. The dude's a stud. Wasn't able to get in the end zone, but nonetheless was able to put up a ton of yards on the ground. And then Dalton Kincaid, Mr. Consistent when he hasn't been injured. Number 1 target for Josh Allen in big moments. He came up with a huge touchdown in this game as well. He had 6 catches for 83 yards and a touchdown. And then also you got Khalil Shakir. Khalil Shakir is one of those receivers that I feel like he's not like a great receiver, but he's a very good receiver on catching the ball in these short plays and getting receptions and then using his legs to kind of go from there. He was able to have 7 catches for 75 yards. Now, we flip things on over here, and on the other side of the ball, we got Bo Nix, who had 279 and then 3 touchdowns with only 1 interception. Had a couple rushing yards on the ground as well, but kind of the big story for this game was Marvin Mims. Marvin Mims is one of those guys that I actually drafted in free agency, or drafted in fantasy football and then released into free agency after having just like an abysmal start to the year. But then here in one of these humongous games, he puts up 8 receptions for 93 yards and a touchdown. And then you'll notice the other kind of person I just wanted to put down simply for the fact that they caught a touchdown was Lil Jordan Humphrey. who also caught himself a touchdown, which helped propel the team to a 33-30 victory over the Buffalo Bills. Now, once again, this one hurts to, anybody that's a fan of Josh Allen, whether or not you actually are a Bills fan or not. But, you could see in his post-game interview the emotions that he did have following this game. And it really just seems like, for some reason, man, with how much talent Josh Allen has, the team around him, they're not able to get it done. And that's going to kind of factor into one of the situations that we will discuss here momentarily. But nonetheless, the next game we'll talk about here, guys, is the Seattle Seahawks versus the 49ers. I got to be honest, I really am not that surprised by this outcome. The Seahawks absolutely boat raced the 49ers, 41-6. It was completely lopsided. Brock Purdy did nothing, 140 yards and a pick. Mac Jones even came in for a couple of snaps. Even McCaffrey, 37 yards rushing. Granted, he did have somewhere in the 50s in terms of receiving yards. So, receptions and receiving, he did all right, but just, not really a typical performance in a big moment like this. And then the last guy to mention there would just be Jake Tonjes, who obviously with the injury of George Kittle was able to come in and kind of make a decent game for himself here with 5 catches for 59 yards. And then I did put Eddie Pinheiro down here at the bottom because that guy was the only point scorer for the team, 2 for 2 on field goals. So shout out you, Pinheiro, for not going and allowing your team to get skunked. But other than that, man, it was an abysmal game for the 49ers. Sam Darnold really didn't do much as well. He had 124 yards and 1 touchdown. Granted, the guy didn't need to do much. Mixed with his defense, as well as you can see here, Kenneth Walker put on an absolute clinic, 116 yards and 3 touchdowns. And ironically, Cooper Kupp also had a pretty decent game, 5 catches for 60 yards, not even JSN, who was really doing most of the work. But the passing game didn't need to be great because they were doing so well running the ball as well as defending that there was really no rush, no need for it. Now, with all that being said, it's going to be a pretty cool matchup coming up for them as they're going to take on obviously the Los Angeles Rams here next week, where Cooper Kupp played for a ton of time. So it'll be a fun little reunion, fun little game. And I think it might be one of the most entertaining games of the season, especially here in the playoffs. One thing I did want to touch on too, before I kind of close the complete chapter on that one there with the Denver Broncos, is obviously we have the injury of Bo Nix. Bo Nix is obviously done for the season. Jarrett Stidham is going to be starting first game of the year in the championship game. So nonetheless, that will be interesting, and we'll see kind of how Jarrett Stidham steps up to the challenge. The next game that we're going to recover on here is the Texans versus the Patriots. Now, once again, this was a game that I honestly thought the Texans were going to do a little bit more and actually potentially win the game. But, the biggest thing you're going to notice with the lopsided score here is you'll notice the 1 touchdowns to the 4 interceptions for Stroud. That is just crucial, man. You just can't have that happen in those big moments. And they still weren't completely out of the game, given he had 4 interceptions. So just taking away even 2 of those crucial picks, and it could be a completely different game. Jaden Higgins, 6 catches for 59 yards. Really, that is all to kind of cover on the Texans. It was really a pretty boring offensive performance from them. And then you have Drake May on the other side of the ball, who had 179, 3 touchdowns, 1 pick. Drake May's had an awesome season. He's been able to get the job done when it's needed to be done. Ramondre Stevenson, 70 yards rushing, pretty consistently doing his thing on the ball there. And then Kayshon Boutte had 3 catches for 75 yards and a touchdown. So those are kind of the standout performances that you're going to notice based on, really what this game was. But all that being said, a couple of the commonalities you're seeing here is not taking care of the football, man, whether that's fumbles or interceptions. There's just some pretty crucial avenues that the ball has been lost at, and it's really, affected a lot of these teams. Leading on into the last game here is the Chicago Bears versus the Rams. Now, this one, once again, for all of you guys out there that remember, I am a Minnesota Vikings fan, but I'm also a Chicago Bears fan. I got to be honest, I know it's weird, but that's just kind of the way I was brought up. I had some family on both sides, And with all that being said, this one was a tough one too. Matthew Stafford had 258 yards, didn't do anything overly impressive. Kyron Williams had a great game, 87 yards and 2 touchdowns. Even Puka Nacua didn't really have an amazing game. 5 catches for 56, which for him is a very underwhelming performance. The biggest thing, if you look again, is those interceptions, man. Caleb Williams had 257, 2 touchdowns, and 3 picks. DeAndre Swift, 76 yards on the ground. He had himself a good game. DJ Moore, 5 for 52 and a touchdown. Great game from DJ. But man, for any of you guys that did watch the back end of this game, Caleb Williams had one of the most impressive 4th down, no time left situations where he, was able to maneuver, chuck a ball up, and have an absolutely perfect throw to Cole Kmet in the back of the end zone to tie the game up. One of the coolest plays I've seen in a long time. And then just down the backside, man, you go to overtime and they have a real opportunity to win that football game. And he just throws a not very good ball, just makes a bad read, gets intercepted, and allows for the Rams to just move the ball, couple of different first downs, and kick a field goal to win the game. So, it's a heartbreaker for the Bears. But at the same time, shout out the Bears, man. They had a heck of a season. They got a lot of young talent. So for them, if anything, there's a lot of positives to take away from the season, things they can bring into next year. And I think if they just acquire a couple of different key pieces, man, they really are going to be a Super Bowl contending team next year. So with all of that being said, guys, the next thing we're going to jump into really quickly here is a little bit more of that coaching carousel, man. Now, as you guys recall, I mentioned there briefly on that Bills topic, a little bit of the frustrations in the office there with having someone like Josh Allen and just not being able to get the job done. And top right, you're going to notice good old Sean McDermott, and he finally did get fired by Buffalo. They got rid of him. I thought he was a good coach, but it's just, with a talent like Josh Allen, you just can't waste your opportunities with him when you have them. And I think the biggest thing that they did falling short is they just didn't surround him with any good real receivers. I mean, Dalton Kincaid's a good player, but he's a tight end. Khalil Shakir's okay, but I mean, Keon Coleman was just not good this year. And then it's just a bunch of lack of a better term, guys, just a bunch of bums. Really didn't have too much in terms of, offensive weapons, and they just didn't have a chemistry. That was the biggest thing. So I think going into next year, man, they got to bring in some talent on the receiver side of things, because if you can combine Josh Allen, James Cook, and Dalton Kincaid when he's healthy with a couple of good receivers, I mean, that offense, man, is going to be a problem. Now, moving to the bottom right here, we're going to go to good old Jeff Hafley, who has now taken over the position as the Miami Dolphins head coach. So the Green Bay Packers coordinator, obviously worked with Matt LaFleur over there. Unfortunately, Matt LaFleur is still hired and still being paid. I was hoping they were going to can him because I'm sick of Matt LaFleur, but that's my opinion. Nonetheless, Jeff Hafley is going to be coaching the Miami Dolphins starting next season. Now, down in the middle here, the next guy you're going to see is good old Kevin Stefanski. I knew Kevin Stefanski was going to get another opportunity. I mean, he's a good coach. He definitely deserves it, and he'll be taking over for the Atlanta Falcons, which I think will be a pretty cool opportunity for him. You got a young running back in Bijan Robinson. You got some young talent with Drake London. You got Kyle Pitts, and, Michael Penix is injured, but him coming back, I mean, there's a lot of opportunities for him to kind of mold that team into a potentially really good football team. And moving up now, talking about good old Robert Saleh, the old Jets coach, got canned from the Jets, went to the 49ers as a DC, and now he will be taking his talents to the hopeless team of the Tennessee Titans. Now, I got to be honest, I do not know how I feel about this hire. Robert Saleh just was not very good for the Jets. And truthfully, the Titans are worse than the Jets, in my opinion. There's some young skill there, but it's just a catastrophe down there in Tennessee. So it'll be interesting to see if Robert Saleh comes in and can actually make an impact on that football team and see where they can really try to go. The good news for Robert Saleh is there's really nowhere they could go but up based on their last couple of years. So it's not like he has any big shoes to fill. Now, moving over to the left, you're going to see good old Mike McDaniel. Now, Mike McDaniel is actually not going to be moving on as a head football coach. Currently, what reports are saying is he will be taking over the offensive coordinator job for the Chargers, which I got to be honest, he is a play calling head coach. I think Mike McDaniel will be absolutely incredible over there as a offensive coordinator. And, with the potential of that team as well, I think if they get him in there and he can really make some good judgment calls, I think that they definitely could have a really, really good football season next year. So that'll be awesome. It'll be cool to see. I think their offense will be very entertaining. And that leads me down to the bottom left with the really kind of the biggest coaching hire, in my opinion, which is John Harbaugh. I always mix up the brothers because they're both always coaching, always in the league. John Harbaugh going to the Giants. I think that this hire could be really, really good for the Giants. He is a great coach, and the biggest thing there is you have a ton of young talent to craft your entire team around. You got Malik Neighbors once he's back. You got Cam Scatterby when he's back. And you got Jackson Dart, man. There is a lot of opportunity for the New York Giants with a coach like that who has a lot of experience, who has a Super Bowl. Having him come join the platoon is going to be massive for the football team and for the entire organization. So I am really excited to see where a couple more of these key pieces do end up falling next season. But we have a couple that are starting to fall into place here, and I think it's kind of lining itself up to be a pretty entertaining football season next year, nonetheless. Now, the next thing we're going to jump into, guys, is obviously what the playoff picture is looking like coming up this week. Now, obviously, on the AFC side of things, we have the Patriots against Jarrett Stidham and the Denver Broncos. Now, personal predictions on this game, I have the Patriots winning this game. I think that just unfortunately, Jarrett Stidham has no experience in a big game, let alone any experience this season in a game. So he did have a really, really good preseason. I will give him that if any of you guys watched. But that all being said, man, this is just a completely different atmosphere, environment. You're playing against ones. I think that the Patriots are going to run the show against the Broncos in this game, and they will be heading to another Super Bowl. Now, on the other side of things, in the NFC, we have what I think might be one of the funnest games to watch this entire year, and that's going to be the Los Angeles Rams and the Seattle Seahawks in the NFC Championship game. Personally, I have Seattle winning this one. I got to be honest, I'm kind of envious for Sam Darnold to get to a Super Bowl just simply because he was a member of the Minnesota Vikings. I thought it was awesome watching him last year. He's doing well again this year. And they're just looking good, man. They are just rolling. They're crushing everybody. They're playing so good on both sides of the ball. I just really think they're going to be able to win this football game against the Rams. And we're going to have a nice old rematch from, it's probably been, how long has that Super Bowl even been? I'm actually really kind of curious now. Let me get some research on this. Seahawks versus Patriots Super Bowl. What year was that Super Bowl? 2015. So ironically, just about 10 years, just over it, is when they ended up playing each other in the Super Bowl. And that is my prediction for what will be this year's Super Bowl as well. The Patriots versus the Seattle Seahawks. Now, with all of that being said, what I am going to do is I do kind of want to take a peek at what some of these projections have for the playoffs and see if there's any sort of predictions that falter a little bit, similar to what we looked at last week. So when we do look at that first game of the day, which is going to be the Patriots versus the Broncos, which is going to be at 3 p.m. Eastern time, they have the USA Today puts them at the Patriots winning 24-20, and then the Arizona Republic has the Patriots winning 23-17. So very much the same as what I have there. I have the Patriots taking the win there. And then closing out the day at 6:30 Eastern time, we have the Rams against the Seattle Seahawks, where USA Today has the Seahawks winning 26-23, and Arizona Republic has the Seahawks winning 27-24. So as you can see, both of those two projections are very close games, both only separated by a field goal. I think it's going to be an awesome game, man. It's going to be a very entertaining football game, and I'm very much excited to see where this ending of the year really can take us. So with all of that being said, guys, that kind of wraps up a little bit about the NFL topics that I did want to cover today. So the last two things I do want to touch on here is to talk a little bit about golf, because as I mentioned last week, we had the Sony Open, and you'll notice here by the top left, Chris Gotterup took the prize as the winner of the Sony Open. He had an incredible last 2 days, wasn't even really in the top on the first couple, ended up finishing out really strong and got himself an opening season win, made himself a nice little chunk of change as well, so that is awesome for him. Good to see it. Now, I had Ben Griffin winning last week. I thought Ben Griffin was going to get the job done. Unfortunately, he didn't. He played good, but didn't play great. But now as we'll look over into the American Express, which starts up tomorrow on Thursday, we have the previous winner, who was Sepp Straka, who took home the prize last year, and then the odds to win this season. Obviously, number one by quite a substantial amount, as he is every tournament that he is in, Scottie Scheffler, who's at plus 300. Following up with him is my boy Ben Griffin at plus 2,000. I think Ben Griffin is going to have another really good season. I think this is a good opportunity for him to get a win early on in the season. Following right behind Scheffler and Ben Griffin, we got Robert McIntyre and Russell Henley, who both are at plus 2,200. Henley had himself an awesome season last year as well. McIntyre played some really good golf. Both of those guys still holding high on those ranking projections. And Ludwig Åberg at plus 2,500. So as you can see there's quite a substantial difference between number one and number two. But then from there, man, it's a pretty tight race. So I think that this is anybody's tournament. It's going to be an enjoyable one to watch, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it all shakes out. So with all of that being said, the last thing that we're going to touch on is the good old Australian Open, which for me, I got to be honest, this is a sport that I was not really too invested in, really at all until a couple of years ago. I would say about 3-4 years ago. I would watch some of the big matches, but like just in general, I wasn't overly invested. But there's so much skill that goes into this sport, and it's all an individual basis, similar to golf. So I just think that it's a really cool sport to watch. And it's very fast paced in terms of they're always, ripping shots back and forth. There's not much downtime in between it. And the matches are long, man. You got to be in some great physical shape to get the job done. And with all of that being said, to just kind of recap a little bit here. Now, from the men's opening round on day one, I just wanted to kind of recap a couple events, matches even, that were pretty fun to watch, and even a couple of the upsets, because there's been quite a few already. One of the big ones, Jensen Brooksby went down to Bublik. I figured that was going to happen. Bublik's number 10. Jensen Brooksby's just been a really fun watch. He had a great end of the year last year. I think he's going to have a big season coming up this year. Now, Ferry from Britain ended up taking down Kobali, who was number 20 in the world in straight sets. So that was kind of a big opening day upset, really, to kind of get the things going there. And then going down a little bit further on here, we have Zhang, who took out Sebi Korda, who Sebi Korda has dealt with some injuries. He's been a good player, but kind of just had a couple days, couple games, events where he has struggled a little bit to actually get, everything kind of finalized and put together a really, really good tournament. Moving down a little bit more, we're working our way through here, and Kecmanovic lost to Etcheverry in 5 sets. Really good match. I remember watching that one as well. One of the really cool things about this season is there's a lot of Americans, both on the men's and the women's, that made it into the actual tournament, which is pretty neat. So as we kind of move now from day one into day two, a couple of the other big time matchups that you're going to see here. Mackenzie McDonald got beat in straight sets against Alex de Minaur. De Minaur on his home surface. Really looking good so far. Awesome to see. Djokovic wins in straight sets as he approaches towards the end of his career. So really not too sure if we're going to get another one out of him. And then Borges actually takes down Auger Aliassime in 4 sets, more or less. Asame actually had to retire, but that is a big, big upset right off the rip. So once again, upsets kind of going crazy. Stan Wawrinka takes home a win in his first round matchup against Desiree, which is awesome for Stan. This is his last ride. He's retiring after this season, so really cool to see him get the job done there. Lehechka goes down in straight sets as well to Guy, and Lehechka was number 17 in the world, so that's quite a big upset as well. And then honestly, the biggest matchup I was looking forward to was Marcus Giron versus Lerner Tien. Lerner Tien is a young kid who's a stud, and he ended up winning in 5 sets against Marcus Giron, who has been playing incredible the last couple of the last couple of weeks. Now, working our way a little bit further south, Brandon Nakashima, American, number 27 in the world. He goes down in 4 sets to Van de Zandschulp. I am butchering that name, I'm sure of it, but nonetheless, I think you guys get the idea. So nothing personal to him. Now, working our way a little bit further down the brackets of day 2 here. Jacob Fearnley, young kid who I've actually enjoyed watching quite a bit. He ended up going down in 4 sets as well. And then Rinderknecht goes down in 4 sets as well to Mirazon. And Rinderknecht was number 24 in the country. So that is a pretty big upset as well. Working our way down a little bit more, Riley Opelka, American, big tall guy, ends up moving on in straight sets, which is really cool to see. The American scene has gotten very, very good over the last couple of years. So it's been really enjoyable to watch, see them kind of make some good progress there. Moving into day 3, which is really the last day that we are on currently. Ben Shelton absolutely crushed, wins in straight sets. I'm looking for big things out of him this year. Yannick Sinner, nonetheless, does the same, wins in straight. And then going back down through, kind of looking for a couple potential upsets here if I'm recapping from what I've kind of seen earlier. João Fonseca is a big one. Number 28, young kid out of Brazil, has been playing incredible and gets taken down in 4 sets to an American college student, I believe. Spizzery, I believe is the name. Awesome match to watch. A lot of big things coming out of the American tennis scene. So it's going to be an exciting next few years. And Pesci Pericard loses to Baez, which was a big time loss in my opinion. I thought Pericard was going to make it kind of deep into this tournament here, but nonetheless, it's been very enjoyable to watch. And moving down here, Talon Griekspoor, number 23 in the world, goes down to Quinn in straight sets. Once again, pretty big upset there on the men's side of things. Moving into day 4 now, we do have Alcaraz winning in straight sets. We have De Minaur winning in 4 sets. Kind of crushing things, no different than what we've always expected out of them. Rublev still doing his thing, moving on there. Medvedev has a pretty strong finish to a match against Hallis. And Davidovich Fokina takes down the big man Riley Opelka in 5 sets. Bublik moves on in straight. Tommy Paul moves on in straight. So we're in a really good place. This tournament is awesome. Lerner Tien wins in 4 sets, moving on. And Mute also moves on, beating an American there. Now, Cam Norrie also takes down Nava, who had a really great start to the tournament. There's a really, really good atmosphere there. It's a lot of fun to watch, and the men's tournament has been a blast so far. Now, moving on to the women's side of things, to just really recap a little bit where the women's side of the tournament is at. We're going to start right off with a couple of pretty big upsets, truthfully. Quite a few surprising wins and losses. Venus Williams goes down in 3 sets, unfortunately. The American star who's been big for quite a few years in the tennis scene. Obviously, her sister kind of overshadows her slightly, but nonetheless, really, really good athlete. Not sure how much left she has in the tank. Alex Androva loses in 3 sets to Sanmez, who is number 11 in the world. Yastremska, number 26 in the world, goes down in straight sets. Kostiuk, number 20 in the world, goes down in 3 sets. There's just a couple big time upsets. It's been a really interesting tournament so far. Really, really fun to watch. Really fun to see some of these upsets and keep things interesting. And that's why I also enjoy tennis. Like, just because you are number 2, number 3, number 4, nobody's really safe. Like, if you're not on your game that day, like, you really can lose against somebody who might not be top 30, top 40 even, which is really, really interesting. Coco Gauff crushing it like she usually does. Moving on down through here, I believe there was a couple big upsets on day number 2. Emma Navarro loses in 3 sets, number 15, American. That's a big upset in my opinion. Emma Navarro just hasn't really looked that great. I don't know. She's a great player. She just hasn't been able to get it done in these big tournaments. Peyton Stearns takes down the other American, Kenin, who was number 27. Now, working our way south a little bit more through this bracket, looking for any of these that really do stand out for us. And most of these are kind of the way you would think they would fall. They did fall. and kind of seeing if there's anything else to comment on there. Moving on to day 3 now. As we approach day 3, getting into more of the thick of it now. We got a couple round 1 matches left, but we're working our way into round 2. Naomi Osaka wins in 3. Madison Keys wins in straight sets. Katie Bolter goes down to Benchik. And working down a little bit more, Joint, the Australian young girl who finally was ranked at number 30, she does end up losing in straight sets to Valentinova. And so does Sloane Stevens, loses in straight sets, the American who's had a pretty solid career. Samsonova gets taken down by Sigmund in 3 sets. Working our way down, Leylah Fernandez also goes down in straight sets, number 22 in the world. So as I mentioned, there's just been a lot of big upsets. It's been a very enjoyable tournament to watch so far. A lot of fun seeing some of these impressive upsets, a lot of good tennis to be had. Eva Hovich, the very young American, number 29 in the world, wins both of her matches in straight sets. She has been looking really, really good. Coco Gauff cleans house in straight sets as well. She's been looking impressive. And Jasmine Paolini also cleaning house in straight sets, moving on to actually take on Eva Hovich, which I believe will be a very, very fun match to watch. If any of you guys are interested in tuning in for a match, I highly recommend that one. It will be a really, really enjoyable one to watch. Emma Raducanu, number 28 in the world, she ends up going down to Potapova as well. Lee from America goes down as well. And looking into this, that is kind of what we have to expect in the Australian Open. So there's been a lot of fun sports going on over this last week. This is a very fun time of year. It's partly why I wanted to start the podcast when I did, simply because this time of the season, this time of the year, there's a lot of sports, a lot of fun, really good stuff to keep our eyes on. So with all of that being said, guys, that is going to wrap up this episode of the Tailgate Report. I appreciate for any of you guys that have popped in over the last 3 episodes now. You know, it means a lot. Anytime you guys leave a like, leave some feedback in the comments, you know, reply to a poll, whatever the situation may be, I really appreciate it. You guys have been awesome so far, and I look forward to recapping this weekend and moving into not only the Super Bowl, but moving into a little bit deeper into the Australian Open finals. So once again, guys, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate your guys' time, and I will see you guys again next week. Take care.